In this episode of the Tutoring with Sheryl podcast, I am going to be really talking about boundaries and how we need to have boundaries in our business. And that sounds absolutely crazy if you want to have a booming business. But here's the thing. We cannot be available all of the time. And so I just want to chat with you about the importance of that and why it's good for your business and it's good for you. First of all, I am proud to say that right now I've got 14 kids on my roster. It is August 17th, the date of this recording. This week I had 2 people fill out meet the tutor lessons. I'm saying that they're on my roster because I think they're planning on having fall services. If that doesn't come to fruition, then I'll still be at 12 and I will be very busy anyway. My intentionality behind my marketing has really paid off, and it hasn't been something that I've taken lightly. I have really worked on sharing my message, being intentional about sharing a flyer or talking on my podcast or sharing information that I've created, like little digital pictures inside of Canva, sharing those out. I'm really speaking to the family of the child that has a reading struggle, because that's who I want to work with. That's my ideal client, somebody who has a reading struggle. Now, what I oftentimes find is that it's not just a reading struggle, it's a writing struggle. And that's why I work on the writing and the spelling as well. I've also been really intentional about like I said, boundaries. And here are some reasons why I think boundaries are important. First of all, I've got a lot of families that want to meet with me at like 7:30 at night. And my students are kindergarten through 6th or 7th grade. And while that might work really well in their schedule, I already started tutoring about 3:30 in the afternoon. So by the time I'm getting to a 7:30 appointment, my bandwidth for like being able to concentrate is much lower than it was at 3:30 in the morning. But the kids that want to see me at 7:30 at night might have bigger needs than the kids that are seeing me at 3:30, because the kids that are seeing me at 3:30 are the kids who are just working on their initial phonics, they're decoding and coding as far as spelling, some reading fluency, and just, trying to figure out elements in a story. Okay, so that's what I'm working on earlier in the day, which makes sense, right? That's a little easier than the kid that comes with me with the chapter from their science class and they're supposed to outline it, or they're supposed to read it, or they're supposed to find the answer in the text. And so I'm trying to read all of that, help them determine what's the important information and where can we find the answer in the text. That's a little bit more intense. So if I've already worked for 4 hours straight, haven't had a single break, that's a little bit harder for me. So my first boundary is saying I'm only available between 3:30 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon and 7 p.m. That's it. Hard and fast. I won't work with your child past that because I know how full I am. The second boundary I have is I am not going to work on Fridays, if at all possible. I need one day during the work week that if I have an appointment, I can schedule it. And sometimes appointments can't be made until the afternoon. So if I set all these appointments for a Friday and I happen to be working or whatever, and then I have to get in to see this doctor or whatever, I don't have any wiggle room to like take kids and move them to a different day. Let's say I took Friday off, but my appointment's on Tuesday. Well, then I can take all my kids from Tuesday and say, I'm available on Friday. Will that work for you? Boom, there they are. I also do not want to tutor on a Sunday. That's a hard and fast no for me. If I'm going to work with anybody on a Sunday, it's going to be after 5 p.m. And again, it's a school night. So I will occasionally make the exception, but I don't like to schedule appointments at that time, because for me, it's a time where it's family time, or it's just, I'm not thinking about work time, because this job can be just as encompassing as having a classroom can be. So those of you that are teachers know exactly what I'm talking about. It can really take a lot out of you. And I'm sorry, if you want me to show up and be ready for your child, at some point I have to have some boundaries, right? Another boundary, I'm not going to spend hours and hours and hours working on social media. Okay, the reason I'm not, there was another one I was going to mention about students. I'll come back to that one. The reason I'm no longer going to do that is because it is exhausting. I could spend my whole morning working on my social media and my whole evening tutoring, and that's just exhausting. So I'm working on that radio advertisement, and I'm going to be starting that in October. And I'm just going to have that. And I really am going to weigh the pros and cons. I'm pretty full right now. I might just do maybe another 10 days here and 10 days in the spring and take my number way down on my advertising budget, because I am so full that I might not need that whole year worth of advertising. So that is something that I'm definitely considering. But another boundary, and I just had this happen again this weekend, was a no-show on a student who had requested time with me. I couldn't meet their evening schedule. I said, I'm available at this time. I send reminders to my parents so that they know when I'm available, and they were a no-show. And they got an email 24 hours prior to that. I sent them an email upon entering the meeting, and then I sent them a text and said, is your child ready for their lesson? And I didn't hear back. So my hard and fast boundary is that I cannot run my business with no-shows. My husband is of the thought, well, if they have the meeting scheduled and they don't come, and you're of the mindset that they're going to pay you if they don't show up, what's the problem? The problem is that I'm planning my whole life around that. So unfortunately, I did say to this parent, this has happened more than once. One more time, I'll have to end services, which makes me really sad, because I want to work with this child. But yet, my time is valuable to me too. And I'm giving up a Saturday morning and being available, for your child. So there has to be some, I guess, common respect there. I worked it out in my schedule to find time to work with your child. Please show up for the lesson. I'm giving you those reminders. Please be there. And if it doesn't work, it's okay. Then I'm not the right person for this family. And it's happened to me before. This is not the first time that this has happened to me. That's why I'm talking about it, because you have to decide who is your clientele. And if that's not a good fit for you, then you have to be okay with saying, I'm so glad that I was able to meet your child. They're wonderful. I'm so sorry this isn't working for you and your schedule right now. Check back with me in, 3 months. If I've got availability, I might be able to help you then. But right now that my evening slots are full. And then that's just the way it goes. And I have to be okay with that, because there is a finite amount of time that I have available. Now, I just had 2 students filled out their interest form, like I mentioned earlier, and I'm planning on meeting with the families, and they are probably going to have to be seen on that Saturday morning time, which is not ideal for me. But what will happen is, as the year progresses, I already know one of my students is leaving me, and that's an hour slot. So I can take those 2 and hopefully plop them into the slot that my one student has an hour with me. Why is the student leaving me? Well, I support that student in math, and that student is maxing out on what my ability is to confidently support them. I could kind of stumble along and say, yeah, this will do, but that's not the kind of tutor I am. I am the kind of tutor that will say, this is what I can help you with. This is how I can help you. And if I'm spending an incredible amount of time preparing for that lesson just for that one student, that's also not a good fit for me. Okay, so those are some boundary things. And I want you to really think about boundaries as far as like student behavior. I have a couple of students that have shown some big behaviors. I have not stayed in the calls. If there's something happened prior in the morning, and then they come to the lesson with this problem hasn't been resolved, and then they want to scream and holler during the lesson, and I can't get them calmed down and focused, I end the lesson. I am not going to be there to handle that. That's an at-home problem. I'll try to talk them through it and keep them going. But if they just can't get through the lesson, I must end the lesson. Parents have 12 hours to contact me to say that they can't have that lesson. And if it would be something like really major that happened at school, and I know that that child already has a behavior problem, I would just say, no problem, let's just skip this lesson, because it's not healthy for the child, and it's certainly not good for me either, because I'm on the receiving end of all of that. And I did that for so long in the classroom, where kids would come and they would take their feelings and emotions out of me. I'm not up for that anymore. So, I'm just saying that that's another boundary, a hard and fast boundary that I'm setting that says, No more of that. We're not going to have that. This is the lifestyle I want to live. I'm here to help you with your child the best that I can. But if I cannot provide services that day, we're ending the lesson. And unfortunately, it's on them for not communicating that to me. So that's just kind of how I've had to kind of come to the realization that that's just something that's going to happen. And it's very unfortunate, but it will happen because kids are kids. Life happens. But I'm hoping that they take care of the problem before they come to see me. So that's what the big deal is. And then another boundary is how much are you going to charge? I know that doesn't seem like it's a boundary issue, but I guess the question is, are you undervaluing your services and what you're providing for these families? So if you really have a great service and you have proof that you have a great service, then you can raise your rates to a point where for the majority of people that are reaching out to you, they should be able to afford it. And this is how I kind of think of this. I'm just going to shoot out a number. This is a rate that I've charged people. Okay, $60 an hour. If my husband and I, and this actually happened this weekend, we went out with our really good friends and we went to a little restaurant and we ordered a pizza and we sat there and ate it and the bill came in, it was $60. And we were there about an hour. Okay, so the cost of me going out was the same, and having this enjoyable period of time would be the same as a tutor that is charging $60 an hour. Did I get fulfillment out of it? Absolutely. Was it something that I needed during the course of my week? I think I needed that. I needed to get out and see some people. Did I learn from it? Yeah, I always learn something when I go out with my friends. Was it good for my mental health? Absolutely. Now let's turn this into a lesson for your student or for your child. Did your child learn something? Was it valuable? Did they get something out of it? Was it worth it? Was it in your budget? I mean, we would not have gone out if it wasn't in our budget. So that's kind of what I'm trying to equate, the boundary for. Yeah, it might cost a little bit more than maybe what you want to pay, but is it what is going to be good for your child? Now, here's another boundary. I had a parent that called me up and said, hey, we've got some other issues that have come up in our life and, we're going to have to cut back on services. And I said, absolutely, that is not a problem. So we went from twice a week down to once a week. Then we're going to do, I think, just like 2 or 3 times the following week and then following month, and then we're just going to stop services temporarily in October just does it work to not have services, and then if it works to not have services, we're going to end services, and that's completely fine. I had another family, they had a boundary. I wasn't able to service their child later in the evening. They ended services for now. They might come back, I don't know. But the thing about tutoring is that tutoring is something that is kind of it's a service, okay? It's a service, but you're going to only need that service for so long. So you must recognize as a tutor that you do have to keep sharing your message, and that's the first part about me having boundaries about sharing my message. And then the second part is understanding that when a child meets a goal or a family can no longer sustain whatever services you're providing, whatever that happens to be due to their child's schedule, or even if it's monetary, you just end services and it's okay. You had a moment where you got to meet some really incredible people. You got to work with a really amazing child and a really amazing family who put their child's needs first. And isn't that an awesome thing to do? So as a tutor, what are some boundaries that you need to consider? You need to consider time. Time is a boundary. Okay, what are you doing with your time? If you're teaching full-time and tutoring at night, that's even more of a boundary, right? And then if you're not, and this is your, full-time job or what you do for a living, how are you scheduling your time throughout the day? Are you wasting the first 4 hours of your day, or are you using that to work inside of your business so that you are ready to go when your students show up, right? So, those are some things that you want to consider. And then do you have a boundary as far as what behaviors you're willing to accept during your lessons? How many students you're going to be able to handle on your own? what you're willing to help with during the lesson. Are you only going to be teaching the lesson and then not actually helping with any homework? When I first started, I wasn't helping with homework. Now I've recognized that sometimes my students actually need me to help them with their homework, but that is not our emphasis. I'm not the homework helper. But there are tutors out there that do just specifically work on homework, and then that's who you go find for that homework help. So having those boundaries that are out there, I think, is really important for the tutor and for the families. And then working out some sort of working relationship that you can have with the tutor so that your needs are met, your child's needs are met, and the tutor's needs are met. And then at some point, recognizing that your child is probably going to outgrow those services. If you've really connected with a teacher and you want that teacher to keep going all the way through high school and maybe get them into college, there's not too many people out there that can do that. There's probably a few special people that can, but I don't know that there's a ton of people out there that have the capability to do that. But then also knowing that that trusted tutor that you've been working with probably has somebody that they can refer you on. I do referrals all the time where my students get to a point where I'm just like, I can no longer support you the way that I want to support you. And so I'm going to refer you on. Here are a couple of really great teachers that I know, like, and trust that might be able to continue your journey. And I think just recognizing that and knowing that is the key to success. So I'm going to wrap this up. That conversation about boundaries is really important. So make sure that if you are a tutor, you have those boundaries, and parents, it's okay for you to have boundaries too. But then make sure that you're communicating that with your educator. You guys make it a great day. And as usual, keep the learning going.